Where are you going for dinner?
Good late afternoon. I would like to call the May 14th, 2025 special board meeting to order and ask that you join me in a moment of silence. Thank you. And now would you please rise and join in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And now I'll read our mission statement. The Waterloo schools will set the standard for urban education by ensuring that every student is given the comprehensive support and diverse experiences needed to graduate with a diploma and a plan. The next item on our agenda is a resolution directing the sale of approximately $86,745,000 school infrastructure sales, services, and used tax revenue bonds, Series 2025.
Second.
Put the motion on there. It is the superintendent's recommendation that the Board of Education approve the resolution directing the sale of approximately $86,745,000 school infrastructure sales, services, and used tax revenue bonds, Series 2025, as presented.
So moved in second.
Okay, and a few details, and then I'll hand it over to our CFO and our superintendent. The district intends to use revenue from the state of Iowa Secure and Advanced Vision for Education Fund, SAVE revenue, for the purpose of providing funds to convert Central Middle School building into a new high school building, including constructing additions and related remodeling, and improve the site, including costs of issuance and a debt service reserve fund if required by the purchaser. This is the resolution to be considered. Resolution directing the sale of $87,220,000 school infrastructure sales, services, and used tax revenue bonds, Series 2025. Whereas the school district has arranged for the sale of these bonds to D.A. Davidson and Co. Incorporated of Denver, Colorado, at a purchase price of $88,334,947.15 plus accrued interest to date of delivery. Now, therefore it is resolved by the Board of Directors of the Waterloo Community School District. Section 1, that in accordance with the provisions of Iowa Code Chapter 423F, the sale of $87,220,000 school infrastructure sales, services, and used tax revenue bonds, Series 2025, dated June 23rd, 2025, for the purpose to convert Central Middle School building into a new high school building, including constructing additions and related remodeling, and improve the site, including cost of issuance and a debt service reserve fund, if required by the purchaser, upon the following terms, is approved and confirmed. That the president, section 2, that the president and secretary are authorized and directed to issue and deliver school infrastructure sales, services, and use tax revenue bonds in the aggregate principal amount of $87,220,000, each in the denomination of $5,000 or multiples thereof, bearing interest and maturing as follows. Section 3, approval of bond purchase agreement. The form of bond purchase agreement is approved, and the president and secretary are authorized and directed to execute the same on behalf of this board and to take such actions as may be required to perform and carry out provisions. Section 4, that all acts of the superintendent of schools, secretary of the board, and municipal advisor done in furtherance of the sale of the bonds are ratified and approved. So now I'll turn it over to our CFO, Mr. JT Anderson, and we'll open it up for dialogue.
Yeah, just piggybacking off of our conversation from Monday night. We did have our bond sale earlier this morning, and we wrapped it up early this afternoon, and I did send the results out to the entire board. Tim Oswald is back tonight to kind of review today's activities and kind of go over the details of that. So I'll kind of pass the baton over to him.
So the sale went reasonably well. As we started into the sale this morning, within an hour or so of the release of the bonds, all of the maturities except for 3 were either sold or had meaningful orders. Now, sometimes it happens that not every available bond that a buyer wants to buy the entire-ish part of the bond, and so sometimes they submit an order for part. Anyway, so as the order period wrapped up around 10, it was clear that there were just 3 maturities that would need some attention. Feedback was that the price that we had indicated was the interest rate was a few 0.01% too low for the appetite of the investors who might care to own those bonds, and so I worked with Davidson, your underwriter, to kind of go over options, and so ended up having to slightly reprice those 3 maturities upward in interest rate by plus or minus 0.2%. And in the process, we had several of the maturities that were over ordered. There were more orders than there were bonds available. And so in some of those maturities, we ended up getting to push the rates down a little bit. And all told, we ended up with an average rate of a 4.71, which you saw in what was sent to you. For comparison purposes, when the scenarios we ran kind of middle of last week, we were to 468. On Monday, I think we were at 469. And so we're wrapped up, but we didn't, we wrapped up at a little higher rate than we were 2 days, 3 days, 4 days ago. And for comparison, just to point out that the Treasury market today was off about 0.05%. So we were trying to, we call it sell into a market where there were sellers competing with us, trying to sell other things. So I'm happy. I think we've got a good outcome, but I would, in hindsight, I'd rather done this last Thursday, I think. But we don't get the luxury of hindsight. So let me pause there because I have one other thing, but let me pause there. Did anybody have any questions?
With the bonds that 3 bonds that you're referring to,
Yeah.
is that at a cost to the district, or does DA Davidson, how does that look for those particular three bonds?
Good question. So when we reprice, Davidson revises the schedule, and that's at a cost to the district. So when they revise, that's why I want to weigh in. So I want to be saying, hey, I think that's appropriate, or I don't think that's appropriate. The converse is also true for those bonds where we had more buyers than we had bonds available, and we repriced downward. That's to the benefit of the district. So we get both sides of it. To answer your question. Thank you.
So we sold out completely?
Yeah. Isn't that nice? I told Dr. Smith and JT this afternoon, we had orders for 200 million of bonds. Now, before you get too terribly excited about that, what ends up happening when an issue is going well, and it's clear that that issue is going to get completed and happen, there are actors that come in and submit orders at the last second, last few minutes, hoping maybe, they might get allocated some of the bonds, and then they would then maybe on another day turn around and sell those. And so part of what any underwriter and part of what Davidson does is try and filter through and remove the bad actors from the list and only fill the orders from those that were genuine, what we call going away orders, real people who want to buy these bonds and with the intent that they're going to hold them and not turn around and sell them in a few days. So that's all I've got for now, unless you have questions.
What's the next step?
So you have 3 action items here, so let's cover those. The first action item is to authorize the sale of the bonds and authorize Astor to sign the purchase agreement. We just went over the numbers. The second step is to authorize the creation of 2 escrow agreements that pay off a small part of 2 of the prior bonds of the district so that we can stay within our required coverage threshold. And then obviously the third one is for you to award the construction bids for the high school for the next steps for today. For the next steps after today, from my perspective, we need to revise sales tax numbers on a regular basis and when events happen. So the next event is in August. The state will release the estimate for the FY26 school year. So that's an obvious event. We should at least get to the district, if not the finance committee, updated numbers. Next event after that is October when you do your count, and we'll want to revise for enrollment. Remember, several of our scenarios have different assumptions about enrollment. So as we gain clarity on next year's enrollment, it will affect all of those scenarios. So I would think we will be regularly updating numbers. And does that answer your question?
Is the bond linked with the issuance of the construction contract, or is that separate from anything you do?
So it's a kind of a yes and no. It is not linked. You are borrowing the money for the purpose of building the project. So it's sort of, in my simple mind, I think if you're going to vote to sell the bonds, you're kind of saying we're voting to approve the contract.
My concern is that there not be a delay, because I think we only have 2 days to act on the construction contract. It was good for 30 days. It came in the 17th of April. So I think it expired.
I
Zach,
think it's Friday.
it expires Saturday. Is that correct? Okay. So it's in my mind, it's quite a good bid. And we don't want to miss anything such that there, but it would be defaulted.
Yeah.
The offer would expire, I guess. So that's separate from actually having the money, right?
Correct. Yeah.
I mean, we've got a commitment here to have the money, but the construction contract, we need to sign tomorrow or the next day
Correct.
completely. And then you say June 23rd is
Correct.
when we actually get the money, but there won't be any significant costs from Larson, I don't think, until then, unless are we committed to any funds until they mobilize? Okay. I just want to make sure everything falls in place because we're up against the deadline of the,
I want some clarity on when you gave out the dates of August and October for count day. What the recommendation is right now for item 5.
Oh,
Does that doesn't change
correct.
depending on the count date? The bonds will remain what they are, even FY26.
Correct.
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 These are through 30 or
2050.
these the first set is through 2050.
Yeah, 25 years. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, what I mean, and I apologize for any confusion, what I mean by action, so let's say enrollment happens to go up. If it were to go up, you might have some bond capacity that comes about because of that enrollment. And you might choose to not sell next year's construction loan or part of next year's construction loan in favor of instead selling bonds. That'd be great if that happens. That'll save you on fees and allow you to lock up that much more of the project funding permanently. So that's what I mean by is we need to kind of continuously monitor, because from here, there will certainly be some change that comes about in what I perceived our original finance plan will be to what will actually happen. Is that helpful?
Can I ask a question about the, you go through the bond debt service list,
Okay.
and it lists the principal and the coupon, that's just the interest rate, right, per
Correct.
year. Maybe I misunderstood, but wasn't it typically lower for the ones due sooner? Or did I misunderstand how interest rates usually run?
That's what I told you. Yeah.
Okay.
Correct. Yeah. No, you remember it correctly.
It just didn't work out that way this time.
No, it did. The interest rates are 5%. They were sold, well, most of the interest rates are 5%. But for example, the bond in 2032 was sold to an investor to yield 3.52%.
Oh.
So that investor's going to be paid 5%. This is where the math gets kind of hard. I recognize that. The district will pay 5% to that investor from now until 2032.
Okay.
But that investor will, because they're paying you 109% of face value to buy that bond, they get 100% back in 2032. That math produces an effective interest rate of 3.5% for that investor.
Okay.
So, and the rates did go in a what we call ascending level, with the lowest rate being the first year.
Okay. I might have to have you make a new graph for that for me.
Yeah, I'm not sure
Just-
that chart is actually in what you're looking at. So
I'm just looking at, I'm sorry, go ahead, Lau.
I'm just saying, essentially, if you compare it to a home loan, they're essentially paying us points.
they're paying you a point
Yeah.
rather than us paying the lender a point.
So you, on a home loan, you can pay points to lower the interest rates. In this case, the coupon rate is above the actual interest rate. So they pay us points, which is the 109%.
Correct.
It's a different form. Okay.
So in terms of next steps, that was a question outside of maybe the bond and the money aspects, we're actually prepared to send central staff and parents a letter once this meeting is complete. It's scheduled for 6 o'clock, so let's hope on that. Showing them about the construction will start Monday, so we're actually like fencing off areas of central for traffic flows and parking and all that. So it's going to happen like ASAP. Jonathan, yeah. So that's in terms of next steps. Yeah, we're moving right away.
When we're going to be concerned about students, we're moving forward with this, with the school. People voted, say yes, go with the school. But when are we going to be about the students? We're talking about voting here, and then all of a sudden on Monday? Wow. You're going to send parents. Have y'all seen the cars that pick up their kids? I have. I'm there. I guess we got to stick to this timeline. The hell with the kids.
What do you mean, John? I'm just trying to understand what you mean. That's all.
Oh, it's
Just, you mean like
they blocking everything off.
Oh.
One way in, one way out.
the kids at Central? Sorry, I was trying to.
Buses.
talking about the kids that are at Central. right now.
Buses, cars, and everything.
Yeah.
I would hope that there would be some type of route.
Well, it would have
That
been
would.
good for us to know that route.
Hello, everyone. Zach, I may need you to come up to speak, but as far as communication goes, we found out yesterday that assuming it goes through today, that they'd like to start. It's just one staff parking lot that's going to affect them right now. And the communication will go out to families ASAP after this. So this indeed is the first available opportunity once this board meeting ends to be able to communicate that to parents. So that communication is going out on Wednesday, and it'll affect them on Monday. So we are giving families, in my opinion, all of the notice possible we could give them in the time frame given. Zach, is there anything you want to add to that?
Just to add that exits and entrances are not going to be affected. We actually meet with, pending board approval tonight, we meet with central staff and WCCX staff and WCC staff May 27th to go over next year's details of what that's going to look like as far as the site. As for this year, till we complete June 4th is when school's done. The only parking lot that's going to be affected is the parking lot to the south, where the bus lanes drop off and pick up. I met with Marla and Carrie Wieland and briefly met with Amy Meehee as well to come up with a game plan for next week when that starts. Like I said, pending board approval, Larson is expected to come on site Monday to fence off that south parking lot, and then they'll begin mobilizing on site in the green spaces as well. So the only thing that'll be affected the rest of this year will be that south parking lot, but Marla and all the admin on site have been aware and know what's going on moving forward.
Both the driver training parking lot and the one next to the building.
Just the one next to the building.
Oh, not the driver training one?
No, not at this time. They want to, where that concrete parking lot's at right now, that's where the commons and the academic wing and the performance wing, they're going to start breaking up that concrete so they can start tearing that out and doing the concrete forms.
And that's currently where the buses drop the students off at?
Correct. Yep. So now with the communication, we're going to drop students off in the front of the building. There's a section where we can do that safely for the kids.
So is that where the buses used to drop students off at?
I was told at one point, yep, that's
Think
where
so.
they
Yeah,
currently,
right now.
that's where they previously have.
Okay.
I
So,
forwarded you guys the visual too. It's in your inbox if you want to take a peek.
so there won't be access to the rear parking lot, or will there?
There will still be access, just that parking lot section.
Not the road?
Correct.
All
They'll
right.
still have that road to go back and forth to access the back where WCC's at. CCX is at.
Okay.
So our kids have to go through more noise,
Yep, that's
pounding.
that's a part of construction.
Yeah, that's part of construction. When do you think we're gonna?
Now, you know, those kids, those 6th and 7th, the 6th and 7th, no, the 7th and 8th graders, they were already shifted over in, yeah. And now they're being shifted. Now they're in a place. Now they got to hear all this banging and everything else. Learning is going to take a hit with them. That's my concern.
Well, you know,
I get it. I get it, but I don't get it.
No, I agree with you. I think we need to see from whoever gets the contract, what it's going to look like, what they're going to be doing when, how they're going to respect different times. Like those things they'll be important.
Well, you know what, guys?
So 2 weeks.
These folks here, they're all educators, and they all went to school for education, and they all went to college for administration, and they know better than a lot of us how kids learn. I wouldn't just assume that they haven't thought of these things. We haven't given them much chance to talk about it before we're bringing the hammer down.
So I'm an educator too.
Yep.
I've been around kids
Yep.
for over 30 plus years. I know how they learn too.
Initially, I think I was like everybody else. I didn't see what your thought was in that conversation. But I do know how students can be affected with excess noise and the visual of looking at what's going on, you know, walking from class to class and seeing the glass window if I'm in the right area. I can see how that's affected. When you started your conversation, I was not on the same page with you. I was wondering what you were saying, but I understand it now, and I understand that our students already have a lot that they deal with. I'm looking at the time frame because we're looking at the last 2 weeks of school, maybe. So my question would be, what would that look like in these next 2 weeks? Even though we want to stay on pace, what could it possibly look like for what can be done during school hours? How close to the building? Is there something else that can be done? We don't know what the construction schedule looks like from, you know, the bid winners' ideas, but we do need to think about, you know, how much excess noise that, you know, classroom, not even the students, the people that are actually teaching. I thought the initial conversation was a little aggressive, but you have to think about what it was, not how it was presented, if that makes sense. So it absolutely makes sense of what he's saying. You know, the delivery could have been a little different, but I get the passion. But we do need to look at these last couple of weeks of school, testing going on, finals. Everybody's excited. So, you know, when something new is around the area, people are gonna pay attention to it.
I think a lot of the WCC stuff will be wrapped up a little earlier because they had to do, seniors had to be done earlier, that WCC side of the business here. And some of the classes got in early because different districts and road have different end times. And you kind of look at it, you got 30th is an early out, right? 26th is no school that day. And I don't know what else is on the Central's agenda, but I assume that most of the schools usually have a outside track or field day or something usually in there. So some of those days may not be as bad. So you kind of look at it, there's
We're look, and I don't think it'll affect the
11
WCC.
days left.
I don't think it'll affect the WCC or WCCX Expo at all. I'm looking at that backside, that south side of Central, and we're still talking about 2 weeks. So
Correct.
maybe we need to find out what needs to be done, what can be done to limit the amount of noise or action. Because I'll go back to when those students were housed at the WCCX, and we heard instruction was taking a hit because of noise and breaking up concrete and things of that nature is a lot louder than the construction that was going on when they were in the makeshift classrooms. So it's a very valid point. It's a very valid point. So let's see what we can do to minimize students and staff being affected in those last 2 weeks of school.
And I would agree. And that's what we did talk about this morning out at Central. Testing is all done this year because that was a question I had brought up with the noise. So there's no issues with that going, through the end of this year. But that was a discussion because breaking up concrete, that's going to be a distraction of the kids. But I talked with Larson Construction a couple days ago. What can we do to have less effect on the school? And we've already pushed back 2 weeks until this approval. We already pushed back 2 weeks for the board, the bid due dates. So we're already kind of a month behind. So in order for them to keep going to progress, we have to add a drive out in Katowski this summer. We have to add a drive out to Miriam's Park over the summer. So there's a lot of movement on site that we have to prepare to make it easier when we start school in the fall, as far as the groundwork involved. And also starting that south end of the foundation that's needed for the precast walls. So I understand the concern of noise, but that was always our talk of during the construction of having kids on site. So
I'm with you. That's why we talked about having the project completed in May sometime.
Yep.
April and May, so that we can have a leeway time before school starts in August of 28.
Yep.
So I'm sure we're still, not far off of that pace, even if we are into the end of June. The plan is to still have it done before August of 28, before school starts August of 28. So, I get that we're ready to go ahead and break ground on it, but let's keep students at the focus. And if we need to push it back or not, whatever that looks like, if they whatever they have to do, if it's not disruptive to class, students get disrupted just walking to class, period. I mean, we're dealing with a different generation of students that have, other things that they have a lot of stuff going on. So I believe we're still in a good time frame to be able to get this project completed by August of 28, by June, end of May, June of 28.
Zach, will you be able to attend most or all of the construction meetings?
yeah, I'll be there for all the OAC meetings.
At least these first ones that you can
Correct. Yeah, and we met.
negotiate, as long as it doesn't interfere with the overall schedule, you should be able to negotiate from the student standpoint.
Absolutely. Yeah. And even next year is going to be more of an impact to Central when, every square inch of that building or around that building's being worked on. So,
Yeah, to everyone's point, I just want to add in there, this has been a number one focus for us as the students, because we learned so much from that transition and the addition at the WCCX. And I know if you ever had the opportunity to walk over there during that time in the open classrooms, it was a distraction. And so after that project, and as we were moving forward with this one, the central leadership staff said, hey, we want to sit down with you and talk through, this didn't work, this did work. And so we went with them, I want to say in the winter, I know we have another meeting coming up, but they are definitely going to be the voices that advocate as well, to ensure that there is limited impact on students and especially their learning time. So I just want to add that because we did learn some things and they were very vocal about that, and that was tough on kids. So Envision is aware of that as well. I mean, that is our first focus. So just wanted to put that out there as well.
So when is the internal remodeling scheduled for? This summer, next summer?
Central you're talking about
Yeah.
itself. We haven't got that far deep into the weeds on that. Right now, we've been talking about the new construction, which involves the athletic wing and then the academic wing. But our intent is always to try to get as much done as we can in the summer
Yeah.
to have a less impact on the students when school's in session.
I guess I was under the impression it's not this summer, but next summer is
It'll
when
be
the
next summer is when
internal.
yes, we'll work on the gym and then the commons cafeteria once we bring on those new areas on site.
I guess I just want to put the board at ease here. I'm looking at my calendar. December 2nd, meeting with central leadership, talk about construction. We've had numerous meetings on this. So like sometimes there's an assumption that nothing's been done, no conversations have been had, central leadership's not been like, I'm looking at my calendar here about all the meetings that we have had. So I just want to put you at ease. I want to put the whole board at ease that we always put students first in every decision that we make. So please trust us. Okay, Jonathan, I know that you heard Larson told us literally yesterday, and we need to work with them on the timing. But it just seems like at times there's this that we are not thinking through these things. And I guarantee you we are. I'm looking at we sat down and then we sat down with them again on January 10th with building leadership to talk about construction. So please just trust us sometimes on this. It just gets a little, I feel like recently, and again, there's high stress, high tension. There's a lot of big decisions. Just trust us that we think through these things and give us an opportunity to share those things before assuming that we're not doing that, if that makes sense. And I told this to Chrisley the other day. At times, I feel like we're always on the defensive. Give us an opportunity to share the things we've done before assuming the worst, if that's okay. Because again, I'm just, the fact that we're not thinking about the students is the furthest thing from the truth. The furthest thing. So many conversations with Ross last year, Zach, Marla, about how can we do this better. So just trust us on that. I know it's not ideal. I know it's not going to be perfect. We got the information, and bravo to Zach, bravo to Emily for pulling the group together today. Leadership has been super helpful. Marla, Carrie, Amy, to make sure that we can make this work. So again, I want to say something. Again, I'm not trying to be combative, but a couple times these last few meetings, it's been, have you thought about the students? Oh my, that's all we do all day is think about the students.
And I
So-
think we all believe that, but we don't know. You don't know something till you know. So asking it does not mean we don't trust anything. It just means, hey, we don't know, so we're asking. And then you perfectly rightly
Yes.
are able to say, yeah, we did this, we did, and then it's
Yeah.
answered. So don't.
Yeah.
Don't.
Well,
I
sometimes-
just don't want you to feel that way.
Sometimes when it's
Asking
at the board
questions.
table
Yeah,
and people go back and watch the video, they're
I
like,
understand.
does and I would encourage you, like, we are always an open door in terms of like sharing these things. And again, I there's a point when at the board table we want to make sure the community knows. There's also a time like that you show trust in these settings as opposed to just the way it's delivered. So again, I would encourage you to come, like, we will share these things with you. We could sit down with you all tomorrow if you'd like and talk about the things we've done. So that's just my ask. Again, just thoughts I have.
That's fair. Yeah, we all starting to get it at the board table, especially me. So that's fair. That's fair. Okay, so
So what
With-
again are we just voting on with this one vote? Can we?
so
kinda-
yes, so that's what I wanted to reference real quick. You know, with something this big, and that conversation wasn't supposed to go that way, but questions asked when you're it's all tied together. Like Pam and I were just discussing, it's tied together. So we want to make sure we get this right for our students and our community and our families. So with that being said, are there any more questions or comments?
So the motion on the table is to authorize you, Pastor, and the board secretary to sign off on this bond. Is that correct?
To sign off on what
You
happened
don't
this
need to
morning.
sign off?
Right? That's what all we're voting on this with this vote. Okay.
And see how you just
No, legally, I don't have to sign off. It's the board secretary, which is Pam, and the board president.
Okay.
and I told you I'm getting it.
Responsible for ADA.
I'm tough enough. I can take it.
Wigs.
So, and this is for, yep. Let me go back. Because I want to make sure I'm crossing all my T's and dotting all my I's. This is the first bond sale, right? Okay. And these are to 2050. Okay. All right. So, seeing no other comments or questions, this does call for a roll call vote. So I'll start down here to my left. And I'll read the recommendation one more time. It's a recommendation that the superintendent's recommendation that the Board of Education approve the resolution directing the sale of approximately $86,745,000 school infrastructure sales, services, and use tax revenue bonds, Series 2025, as presented. We already have a motion on the table. Director Mills.
Aye.
Director Knight.
Aye.
Director Schmidt.
Aye.
Director Ewing.
Aye.
Director Matlock.
Aye.
Director Cox.
Aye.
6. Chair votes aye. Motion carried. So I think I need to read the last part.
The
I think I need to read the last part.
just point
So,
of,
I just need to read the last part real quick.
all right.
Yep. This is the last part. I already read 1 through 4. Make sure I start in the right place. So on this day, May 14th, on this 14th day of May 2025, the resolution was passed and approved to issue directing the sale of approximately $86,745,000 school infrastructure sales, services, and use tax revenue bonds, Series 2025.
So the discrepancy between the 87,220 and the 86,745, that's not a issue?
Sorry, correct. The actual resolution that Pam has that Astor will sign has the correct dollar amount in it. Your attorneys would like to use the number from the first communication. So whatever that number was in the first original document, they used to flow through the sale. It's don't read anything into it beyond just it's like
right.
a title.
So the real number is 86,745.
87,220 is the number in the actual resolution.
Oh, approximately. All right.
Yep.
I got it.
Yep. Yeah. Okay. 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 All right. The resolution directing the sale of $87,220,000 school infrastructure sales, services, and use tax revenue bond series 2025. Sure. Oh, gotcha. Gotcha. Okay. All right. The next item on the agenda is resolution authorizing the advance funding of school infrastructure sales, services, and use tax revenue bonds, Series 2018, dated March 1st, 2018, and approving the escrow agent agreement dated as of June 1st, 2025, and authorizing its execution, and authorizing the advance funding and redemption of school infrastructure sales, services, and use tax revenue bonds, Series 2020, dated October 22nd, 2020, and approving the escrow agent agreement dated June 1, 2025, and authorizing its execution. It is the superintendent's recommendation that the Board of Education approve the resolution authorizing the advance funding of school infrastructure sales, services, and use tax revenue bonds, Series 2018, dated March 1, 2018, and approving the escrow agent agreement dated as of June 1, 2025, and authorizing its execution, and authorizing the advance funding and redemption of school infrastructure sales, services, and use tax revenue bonds, Series 2020, dated October 22nd, 2020, and approving the escrow agent agreement dated June 1, 2025, and authorizing its execution as presented.
Second.
Thank you. This is the resolution to be considered. Resolution authorizing the advance funding of school infrastructure sales, services, and use tax revenue bonds, Series 2018, dated March 1, 2018, and approving the escrow agent agreement dated as of June 2nd, 2025, and authorizing its execution, and authorizing the advance funding and redemption of school infrastructure sales, services, and use tax revenue bonds, Series 2020, dated October 22nd, 2020, and approving the escrow agent agreement dated June 2nd, 2025, and authorizing its execution. Whereas the Waterloo Community School District issued $16,667,000 school infrastructure sales, services, and use tax revenue bonds, Series 2018, dated March 1, 2018, of which $11,097 are outstanding, and of which $750,000 are being advance funded. The 2018 funded bonds, which are described in Schedule A attached to this resolution, and whereas the Waterloo Community School District issued $22,600,000 in school infrastructure sales, services, and use tax revenue bonds, Series 2020, dated October 22, 2020, of which $20,080,000 are outstanding, and of which $40,000 are being advanced funded and called for redemption on July 1, 2029. The 2020 redeemed bonds, which are described in Schedule A attached to this resolution. And whereas the 2020 redeemed bonds, which mature on July 1, 2030, may be called in whole or in part on any date on or after July 1, 2029, from any funds regardless of source, in any order of maturity within an annual maturity by lot, by giving 30 days notice of redemption by ordinary mail, registered owners of the 2020 redeemed bonds, the terms of redemption to be par plus accrued interest to the date of call. Such notice to be given by ordinary mail to the owner of record of the 2020 redeemed bond at the address shown on the books of the registrar. And whereas selection by lot will be necessary to select bonds to be called among the 2020 redeemed bonds which mature July 1, 2030, and whereas the school district has accumulated sufficient revenues and it is in the best interest of the school district to advance fund the 2018 funded bonds and the 2020 redeemed bonds, and to call the 2020 redeemed bonds on July 1, 2029. And whereas, in order to provide for the proper and timely application of money and investment income derived from the investment of the cash for the payment of the principal and interest when due on the 2018 funded bonds and the 2020 redeemed bonds, it is necessary to enter into escrow agent agreements and to enter into certain covenants with the holders of the 2018 funded bonds and the 2020 redeemed bonds. And whereas this board has deemed that the services offered by UMB Bank North America are necessary for the proper and unlawful management and maintenance of the escrow accounts established in connection with the 2018 funded bonds and the 2020 redeemed bonds. And whereas an escrow agent agreement for the 2018 funded bonds and an escrow agent agreement for the 2020 redeemed bonds have been prepared to be entered into between the school district and UMB Bank NA, and now therefore be it resolved by the Waterloo Community School District in the County of Black Hawk. Section 1. Yeah. The treasurer shall deposit with UM Bank NA $748,371.69 from cash on hand of the issuer by June 2, 2025 to pay principal of and interest on the 2018 funded bonds when due. Section 2. The escrow agent agreement for the 2018 funded bonds is hereby authorized and approved, and the president and secretary are authorized and directed to execute the escrow agent agreement upon deposit on or before June 2, 2025 of $748,371.69 with the escrow agent. The escrow agent is authorized and directed to invest such funds at the written direction of the district in treasury securities of the state and local government series, SLGS, or direct U.S. Treasury obligations at a yield not to exceed the yield on the series 2018 bonds and to mature on or before the date on which principal and interest on the 2018 funded bonds is due, which are described in Schedule B attached to and incorporated by reference into this resolution. Absent such written investment direction from the district, the escrow agent shall hold such funds uninvested. The district must comply with the rebate requirements of the resolution authorizing the issuance of the Series 2018 bonds. Section 3. UMB Bank, N.A. of West Des Moines, Iowa, in its capacity as registrar, paying agent, and transfer agent for the 2020 redeemed bonds, is hereby authorized and directed to cause notice of such redemption to be given not less than 30 days prior to July 1, 2029 by ordinary mail to the registered owners of the 2020 redeemed bonds and for the district's dissemination agent, Piper Sandler and Co. Also, to provide electronic notice of such redemption to the Municipal Securities Rulemaking Board at website emma.msrb.org/. The treasurer shall deposit with UMB Bank N.A. $44,693.03 from cash on hand of the issuer by June 2, 2025 to pay principal of and interest on the 2020 redeemed bonds when due, and to call and redeem the 2020 redeemed bonds. Such call and redemption to be effective July 1, 2029, pursuant to the terms of the resolution authorizing the issuance of the 2020 redeemed bonds and the notice to be given to bondholders. All liability for interest on the 2020 redeemed bonds shall cease, terminate, and be completely discharged as of July 1, 2029, as provided in the resolution authorizing the issuance of the 2020 redeemed bonds. Section 4. The escrow agent agreement for the 2020 redeemed bonds is hereby authorized and approved, and the president and secretary are authorized and directed to execute the escrow agent agreement. Upon deposit on or before June 2, 2025 of $44,693.03 with the escrow agent. The escrow agent is authorized and directed to invest such funds at the written direction of the district in treasury securities of the state and local government series, SLGS, or direct U.S. Treasury obligations at a yield not to exceed the yield on the series 2020 bonds and for interest payments to mature on or before the date on which interest on the 2020 funded bonds is due, and for the principal payment to mature on or before July 1, 2029, which are described in Schedule B attached to and incorporated by reference into this resolution. Absent such written investment direction from the district, the escrow agent shall hold such funds uninvested. The district must comply with the rebate requirements of the resolution authorizing the issuance of the Series 2020 bonds. That was a mouthful. So,
Mike wasn't on, you gotta do it again.
hopefully I spoke loud enough because you're not getting that again.
Do you need Tim to explain that
Yes,
one more time?
yes, because that was a lot.
Highlighted a whole lot, so we'll just see what you got, Tim.
Okay, do my best. So you have prior bonds outstanding. One of the requirements of the prior bonds is that all of your debt payments in any given year not exceed the payments on those are not less than 1.2 times the the annual revenue from the sales tax. Now, in the past, you've issued bonds with relatively quick payoffs and thus have relatively high payments on those bonds. In order to be allowed to issue the new bonds for this project, there were 3 years between now and 2030 where the payments on the new bonds plus the payments on the old bonds produced a level that was under the 1.2 times required threshold. So in that case, it made sense, well, we're required to make arrangements to get rid of a portion of those prior bond payments by this convoluted escrow structure. And the reason that you might say, well, Tim, why don't we just pay off the old bonds, right? And the answer is that you just borrowed at 4.7%. Those old bonds have interest rates in the 2s. We're trying to protect leave those old bonds outstanding because they are far cheaper than what you could do if you were doing this on your own, while still allowing you to borrow the new project and fund it. So that's the end result, is that very lengthy document, but that's the purpose. So how'd I do?
So where's the 748 plus the 792,000? Where's that coming from?
So it'll come out of the save fund.
It'll
Do
come
it.
out of the safe fund.
Do we have enough? We have that much money in there?
Yeah, it'll be a timing, but yeah, we'll have enough.
Okay, and then
Wait, before or after the bonds going.
It'll happen before the
So this is just money we have now in safe, or that we will have, right?
June 2nd,
Yep.
and we don't get the money until June 23rd.
Oh, okay.
So this uninvested, there won't be anything uninvested because of this, right?
Correct.
But it says we can't have any arbitrage. Is that what this is saying?
Yeah, so you can earn up to, but not greater than the interest rate on those prior bonds, so 2% roughly. So the U.S. Treasuries that will get bought will have an interest rate on them. You'll earn that interest rate, but it will be it'll be restricted to the rate on the prior bonds,
So who will be paying us that interest?
the Treasury. So they'll be U.S., you're buying, the resolution says you're to buy U.S. Treasury securities.
We're buying them, but only getting paid 2.9.
You're
Right.
getting paid whatever the average interest rate is on those old bonds.
But that's under the market value. So who gets the difference?
Ah, great question. So the Treasury contemplates this set of facts, and they sell a series, and Esther, you mentioned SLGS when you were reading your litany. That is a U.S. Treasury that they sell specifically for this purpose, and the U.S. government keeps the difference between what the market rate is and what you're being paid.
That's what I thought.
And that's how you get around arbitrage.
Yeah. Okay.
What is arbitrage? What does that mean? Or do I not need it? Does it not matter?
So arbitrage is when you earn money earn an interest rate on money that you've borrowed from someone else.
Oh,
And that's what banks do when they,
yeah.
right? So we're borrowing money today, paying an interest rate, and we're allowed to earn whatever we can. But if it's greater than the interest rate, then we're earning positive arbitrage. If it's less, then we're earning negative arbitrage.
Okay.
Yep.
Can you just real quick talk about what the two different, so that it says that we have the 2018 funded bonds and the 2020 redeemed bonds. Which were those for, and what is the difference between those two things?
So I don't remember the,
One was Lowell.
First
right?
one was Lowell, and the second one was the WCC.
It was, okay. Does it matter what they're called?
Doesn't
Doesn't,
really,
okay.
Yeah.
And then what does it mean then that the district must comply with rebate requirements of the resolution?
Yeah, so that's that arbitrage comment. Yep.
All right. Any more questions, comments?
Just out of curiosity, what interest rate do you expect to get?
right now we're at the current rates are at 4.1.
Okay.
Okay. So this also calls for a roll call vote. I'll read the recommendation once again. The superintendent's recommendation that the Board of Education approve the resolution authorizing the advanced funding of school infrastructure sales, services, and use tax revenue bonds, Series 2018, dated March 1, 2018, and approving the escrow agent agreement dated as of June 1, 2025, and authorizing its execution, and authorizing the advanced funding and redemption of school infrastructure sales, services, and use tax revenue bonds, Series 2020, dated October 22, 2020, and approving the escrow agent agreement dated June 1, 2025, and authorizing its execution as presented. So we'll start to my right, your left. Director Cox.
Aye.
Director Matlock.
Aye.
Director Ewing.
Aye.
Director Schmidt.
Aye.
Director Knight.
Aye.
Director Mills.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion carried. So on this day, the 14th day of May, 2025, it was passed and approved resolution authorizing the advance funding of school infrastructure sales, services, and use tax revenue bonds, Series 2018, dated March 1, 2018, and approving the escrow agent agreement dated as of June 1, 2025, and authorizing its execution, and authorizing the advance funding and redemption of school infrastructure sales, services, and use tax revenue bonds, Series 2020, dated October 22, 2020, and approving the escrow agent agreement dated June 1, 2025, and authorizing its execution. I didn't put my technology up, so I'm rolling on one. All right, here we go. We're winding down. The next item on our agenda is bid approval for the Waterloo High School project. It is the superintendent's recommendation that the Board of Education approve the recommendation from Envision and award the contract for the Waterloo High School project to Larson Construction, Inc. of Independence, Iowa for the base bid of $129,500,000 plus alternate number 1 at a cost of $1,500,000, alternate 2 at a cost of $975,000, alternate 5 at a cost of $640,000, alternate 6 at a cost of $630,000, and alternate 8 at a cost of $160,000 for a total contract cost of $133,405,000. What'd I say? Dollars? Excuse me. I'll read that last line again. For a total contract cost of $133,405,000.
Second.
And discussion.
You know, we didn't really, if you weren't on facilities, we didn't really look at the other bid. I just saw like, I think it was just a written, like kind of layout was the only, and there was difference in the prices, but did the other bid, didn't it have more use of minority owned and women owned businesses or subcontractors? Or did I misread that when I was looking at, you know, the breakdown of how you guys scored them?
Yeah, Zach can answer that while he's coming
Okay.
up. I think you're talking about the subcontractors,
The
not
only-
the actual.
Sub. Yep.
So those will be the subcontractors
Subcontractors.
That they
that you're
hired?
referring to. So the
But
general contractor reaches out or gets bids from the subcontractor. Zach can explain it a lot better than I can. but
Okay.
That was a focus for us, you know, making sure that those minority contracts, we had met with the city as well. So that's a focus for us, especially in a district such as ours.
And both contractors did reach out to minorities for construction purposes. So Larson did as well on top of Boyd Jones. So they both have basically fit that line item that we had required them to do in the bid documents.
Okay. But did they come out differently, or did they just not have those in place yet?
I can't confirm what subs are below subs right now, but I do know Larson is always mindful of that, and also not as far as the minorities go, but also local contractors
Yeah,
too.
I was going to ask that.
They
too.
try to use local contractors as much as they can.
Do
And
we
they-
know the primary subs?
Yes, I do know the primary subs. Yep.
Are many of them local, or?
Yep. Young's Plumbing and Heating was selected for the mechanical and plumbing. Black Hawk Electrical and Waterloo, they got the electrical side of it. And The roofers was Blackhawk Roofing. They're out of Cedar Falls. They did the last project in 2018 on the WCC project. A lot of the concrete and steel work, Larson is able to do that directly. They don't need to sub that out. Trying to think other ones off the top of my head that
Is there
are.
a site contractor?
Larson is doing all that. They do a lot of their storm work, all their steel erections, concrete.
I'm talking about the earth moving.
Yeah, Larson does that as well.
They do?
Yep. Those are the bigger subs. Of course, like I said, there's subs underneath those contractors
Right.
as well.
Okay. And that was really just the only difference
Yes.
in just that sheet I'd noticed. And we had talked back when we were still in the spitball era of this about seeing if some of our trades students would be able to get involved. Is this something that has been discussed with our bidders or no?
It has. I actually talked to Jeff Davis. He's going to be the superintendent on the job. I
Okay.
spoke with him this morning about it. He's checking with Doug Larson, the owner, and also their insurance side of it for liability reasons to verify, because I did speak with Amy Meehee about that. She's very interested in the kids at the Career Center being involved, but I just can't confirm 100%, but we are looking into that as an option. I believe the last project we did, we allowed tours, but we'd like to go a little bit more depth to try to get those kids involved long term.
It's a long enough project. Someone can graduate out and
Graduate.
probably get an appointment.
Absolutely, 100%.
Yeah.
That
So,
that
well-
is another thing to look at is can apprenticeships be prioritized as well?
Will we get a report from the subs of the subs, basically, to be able to determine how successful it were in getting the priority subcontractors?
Yeah, and as I was thinking through that more, the electrical contractor has selected Tri-City and CEC and Hawkeye Alarm underneath them. But we'll know more of the in-depth under subs, but Phillips Flooring, they're out of Urbandale, Des Moines area. They're doing the wood flooring of the athletic performance area, which we've used them on other projects as well and been successful. H2I is doing a lot of the athletic stuff as far as basketball hoops, lockers. They do more of furniture equipped applications.
So like the sidewalk slash bike path to the south, that would be Larson would be the one that elects to sub that out to a minority contractor if they wanted to.
If they wanted to, yep. And that's given that off of the list that the city has a minority list and as well as a DOT. And just on a side note, we do have a concrete company that we just work with directly on smaller projects. So us as a district tries to utilize that as much as we can.
I know you guys had already locked in the alternates as well. I did have a question I thought of between that meeting and this one is, as far as the multi-purpose field and the tennis courts, do we need to have those bid in or put into this initial bid, or can we look to see where we fall money-wise for the second bond sale?
You're saying to accept them later
Yeah.
on down the road.
can't.
Unfortunately, we can't. We're allowed that 30 days to accept those alternates.
And that's just it. Like, we can't add anything to the project then.
We could. We would have to rebid them, and I can't guarantee we would get the
The
the price. Yes, being a
Later, some
lump sum.
grade work associated with that too. That had to happen too.
It's all organic together. Okay.
But the other alternates are were things that could be done. Didn't necessarily have to be done during the construction
Some of the carpet
time at the
replacement.
same cost that they would be, later on down the line.
So that's how, like, it was chosen to have these 5 then.
Yes.
These ones, like,
To-
you can't add the motorized line set later. It has to, it's all
No,
It would
integrated.
help to do it now while you're doing the construction, but the other,
the shell,
The
the auditorium shell, that's a
and then
portable
those are things
piece.
that can be
Okay.
done.
Yeah, those
after.
are sold separately out of a
Yeah.
box.
Yeah.
And I was the one that wasn't ready to commit until we knew the final interest rate. Because if you run the numbers that it could have been closer to 5. If it was 5, that would be a different story
Yeah.
in terms of being able to afford it. By the way, the difference between the 2.70, no, the 4.71 and the 4.70 hundredth of a point, when you add the numbers, is 270,000.
Oofta.
So we're paying 270,000 more than we would have last week with the interest. So that's why nervous about that, because it's really heavily dependent on that. But
Right.
we got competitive interest rates and a good construction bid. So I'm comfortable with where we're at.
Okay.
If that means anything.
Thank you.
I think some decisions too on the alternates were good as well. I mean, the one was the locker room, but the fact that, we, for swimming, but we eliminated locker rooms in one area that,
Your microphone on.
yep. So, I mean, to leave that area unfinished didn't make a lot of sense, so. And it may cost more to go back and redo it later on, a lot more, so.
Do we, by any chance, know what the look of the locker rooms will be? There's a big push in a lot of educational climates now, and to make changing areas completely like enclosed so that it makes it easier. Kids feel more private. Like in colleges, a lot of the bathrooms and changing areas, there's complete cubicles, and it just cuts down on just a lot of the issues that may come up regarding changing rooms. Do we know what these look like yet?
I don't know, but hopefully they'll have enough stalls.
Yes, sir.
I'm not in many locker rooms that have individual.
Or even just offering some that
partitions.
are,
Yeah.
I hope we can afford that. That sounds more expensive, unfortunately, even though it's the better option.
Get me some
Yeah,
good
but
exercise.
Do you happen to know the
there's times
details?
when you want to be, when you may have to spend money to save on lawsuits later, just to ensure that we have that ability to provide individual locker rooms, changing areas so that there is not I'm dancing around a lot over subjects right now, but I think we all know what we're talking about
Yep,
to provide that.
Yeah, that's okay. It does not include like what you're explaining of the cubicles. It's just your traditional style locker room for the athletic area. There are partitions, of course, in bathrooms and things like that, but not the locker rooms themselves.
Maybe that can be one of the things that we ask our wonderful community of donators to pitch in for, so that we can add those. Along with the multi-purpose field. Be great to have Shields written right over that thing. So
There you go.
All right. It's always worth a try. I don't think it would hurt anything. So, are there any more questions, comments? So, all those in favor of approving the superintendent, let's go with this. Let's go with the theme. Since we're here on a Wednesday. So we'll do a roll call vote for this as well. All those in favor of approving the superintendent's we'll do a roll call vote. We'll start to my left, your right again. Director Mills,
Aye.
Director Knight,
Aye.
Director Schmidt,
Aye.
Director Ewing, Director Matlock,
Aye.
Director Cox.
Okay.
Chair votes aye. Motion carried. I think that if I'm not, let me make sure I'm not forgetting anything. I need my technology back.
Where's the actual construction contract?
All right, that was so.
Zach's got it. You got the actual construction contract ready to sign?
I think the contract, I believe, is in process. The official notice to proceed will be granted to Larson tomorrow, which will allow them to start the project.
Yeah,
While we,
that's what Kate was talking about.
yeah,
That's
and
what Kate was
finalize the
talking about
contract.
pushing the meeting back.
Do we know when there'll be like an actual groundbreaking then or no? Do you know, Jared, or anybody?
I was just coming out to say, is the meeting over? Because I'm still streaming, but we're still going, right? Okay. But not officially. Okay.
We haven't adjourned yet.
I am working with Zach, who will help work with Larson and Envision to secure a date for the groundbreaking. We think that will likely be late June or early July. I would think in the next week or so, we'll have that date solidified and we'll let you know right away.
All right, thank you, Emily. Okay, all right, we're ready to get out of here. So,
I just want to
See-
make sure we get the legal documents in by
by time
before.
Saturday, right? Okay, so tomorrow.
Yeah.
All right. Seeing no other questions or comments, can I get a motion to adjourn?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Chair votes aye. Motion carried. We're adjourned.